I'll moderate, and hopefully we can ask these guys. Hopefully they can have some good answers. The question was, anything we can expect for Mobile World Congress for next year? So you kind of heard what's happening this year, but any kind of previews of next year? Dave, you want to take that?
I think one of the things that, one of the reasons Mobile World Congress has been so successful over the years is every year we've really expanded what the mobile industry means. So we launched a program this year called Empowered Industry, which basically kind of expanded who's included in the mobile industry. So we had, like Dan said, the National Association of Broadcasters, we had some travel, we had a couple other groups come in and have kind of conferences within conferences. So if anything, I would say, and automotive as well. So if anything, whatever you thought was mobile this year, I think next year we will expand that and it'll be even bigger, and you'll see even more of it next year.
So kind of picking up on that theme a little bit, CES in Las Vegas.
Great show.
Great show. A lot of mobile stuff happens at CES. So should we spend our time and money going to CES or go to GSMA?
Sorry, what? Sorry?
And why go to GSMA?
Oh, that's a fantastic, tapas.
Well, other than squid.
Let me take the first part of this, and I don't know if any of you guys want to take the second. The one thing I'd say is that you're looking at two very different shows, right? The Mobile World Congress is not necessarily a consumer-focused show. As Dave showed, Mobile World Congress is about the leaders in mobile. We have a lot of our customers, a lot of our members who, everybody goes to Mobile World Congress because that's where they can meet everybody that they need to meet in 1 week to do business that they need to do for the year. Everybody who is anybody in the mobile industry is there and attending and working together. And so it's really much more high level. It's about the leaders in the mobile industry rather than just the consumers. Now, CES is a fantastic event, don't get me wrong. And I think in a lot of ways, CES focuses on the consumer. What are the consumer aspects of that? Which I think is very, very important. But I think you're talking about two different types of events. Different things happen at those events.
Just to kind of reiterate one of Reed's points, I arranged probably a total of 35 or 40 meetings between mobile network operators at the event. It's a very, very, very strong opportunity for mobile network operators to collaborate in an environment where the ecosystem is there. They'll see and talk with people that they might not normally talk with. I was connecting U.S. operators with Canadian operators with China Mobile. So it's an excellent opportunity for the operators to collaborate in an environment where they don't normally get to do that.
The question was, can the networks of the future basically provide for all the different growth in data and the network effect that's going to happen in mobile? Is that basically right? Anybody want to take that question?
I'll take a shot at it from the beginning. Just a very brief comment. One of our initiatives is Network 2020. I think that's a big issue, and the operators are concerned about it, and we are too, and we're tagged and chartered with trying to figure out what the network of the future looks like. There will be strong demands based on data, but it also goes beyond just the network. Last week when I spent that time with some of the Google Glass developers, I learned that one or two of them weren't necessarily as focused on signaling and reducing the amount of signaling as they could be. They were talking about applications that are constantly streaming, applications constantly sending video. These are public safety applications for the most part. There needs to be a lot of focus and attention on reducing signaling to keep the network from being clogged continuously. And an example, they have one application where if you're in Europe and you're wearing your Google Glass, you look at a sign, you can't read Spanish. The sign, you just say translate, that's all you say, and the device actually then takes a picture, sends it into a database, determines what the language is, translates it, and sends you the translation. There's no streaming back and forth on that continuously, which is a good use of spectrum and low amounts of signaling. So I think the application developers have got to be responsible in the way they develop. There are a whole host of resources from the operators, foundries and R&D groups that can work with the application developers. So it's twofold. It's having the networks conditioned to handle the increasing traffic, but also writing applications and developing software that doesn't just continuously use too much bandwidth, if that makes sense.
Let me add this. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Let me add one more aspect to that, which is I think infrastructure spending is critical, right? So when you look at the market, when you look at what's happening, you have a lot of issues in a lot of parts of the world where they aren't investing in infrastructure. And I think we're lucky here in the States, in North America, where the US operators get the fact that they have. So you have to invest in infrastructure, because if you do not, then ultimately you will not have the networks that you'll require in order to support all that data. Dan showed the slide about 11 times the data between now and between 2020, right? If you're not investing in those networks, and if you're not providing the rails upon which all this can run on, there's not much you can do. And I do think there's an aspect of business models that has to be addressed, because one of the challenges is with operators investing more and more in these networks, there has to be the business model to support that, right? And so a lot of these online service providers or over-the-top businesses or services, there has to be a way to figure out how to bring that all together from a financial perspective to support that investment. Because otherwise, if you have decreasing revenues and increasing costs, eventually, we all know the math, that's not going to work out. So. What a fantastic question. So the question was, what is the GSMA doing from a perspective of e-waste? With all these different devices and everything coming out, what are we doing? We are really, really hoping that startups will come along and, no, I'm just kidding. I think there's a number of different initiatives that we're looking at, and a lot of our associate members are also players in this space, and so we support a lot of these players. We definitely see the issue. We see that this is something that is happening and something that we need to keep our eyes on. And this isn't necessarily, even though it is an industry-wide issue, a number of mobile network operators are having their own initiatives in this. I know very well, AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, and T-Mobile, they do quite a bit on this already. And so, the GSMA comes and steps in when we feel like there's an industry, position that we need to take that's not necessarily being done at the company level. We actually feel like our operator members are doing a fantastic job in a lot of this in terms of recycling programs and things like that. So we haven't felt the need to jump into that space just yet. But watch that space, and hopefully some startups can come up with some good ideas as well. So the question, and one of you guys be thinking about the answer here. So the question is, with developing markets, the cost of these networks is potentially prohibitive. Are operators looking at different ways of addressing that issue in terms of providing that coverage to the people that we talked about? Is that the question?
Yeah.
And who wants to answer it?
I would just say, the Facebook example with internet.org, it was not hugely profitable or successful in its initial incarnation, but I think it's a very creative approach. It's a way to teach someone that doesn't know how to do something to suddenly value something like the internet. So I don't know that we have the answers, but I think at the end of the day, it's creative business models, and once you find those business models, I'm sure there'll be several iterations of refining them and making them better and making them more profitable. At the end of the day, there probably is a solution. We got to work our way and get there.
I do think there's more than just a utilitarian, fantastic, wonderful, help these people. I think there are true use cases and business models that are sustainable. And I think if you look at trying to build out those networks, they're trying to do a lot with femtocells or small cells or figuring out different ways to use spectrum in different ways to provide that in those markets. But those operators are obviously very, very well aware of those challenges. And so, I think that's when you look at those initiatives, internet.org, other types of things where we really are serious about this. This is not it would be nice to connect these people. We really want to connect these people because we think that we can improve quality of life, we can improve productivity in markets, we can improve GDP. All of these things will benefit by increasing connectivity.
So the question is, with the federated identity, if you're using your mobile number as your unique identifier when you're roaming the cyberspace, how do we ensure that it's secure? And is it secure? So maybe it's unbeknownst to you, but maybe it's not. But the mobile operator knows a lot about you. It knows if you're having an affair. It knows everything. It knows on a Thursday night you stop at a florist at 11 p.m. on your way home. So it can figure out a lot of stuff about you. And it doesn't share this stuff. So it knows a lot about you already, and we don't share it. So so that's just a side note, but with identity, we are, as mobile carriers in every locally regulated market, have very strict privacy regulation that's in place. And it is strict isn't enough of a word to describe it. And when we were developing this Mobile Connect proposition, this wasn't something that was very loose. It was something that took industry consultation with the operator community in order to develop a rigorous process in order to use your MISDN, which is your unique your mobile number, and to have that connected into a backend that provides a sense of security for that information. And what we're utilizing is a secure element as a SIM card. And that when say a website wants to challenge to authenticate or assert that you are that person, that I am Rafael Diaz, it is going through a secure element and using secure tokens to deliver these, to deliver the messages. And these are one-time tokens. So the information that's being sent back to that, the relying party who's challenging it, the information doesn't come back as this is this person and this is his details. It actually comes back typically as a green light, red light. Yes, no. Whatever you're challenging me for, I'm just giving you a yes or a no, if that's the case. And that's to protect the user's identity and to ensure that it's encrypted within the secure element and it can't be hacked by bots or man-in-the-middle attacks or anything like that.
Thanks, Rafael. So two things. It wasn't me and somebody stole my device, right? So remember those two things and you'll be okay. Okay, so the question is, data increasing 11 times, revenue only increasing 3 to 5 times, there's a disconnect. Therefore, what is going to replace that revenue in order to support that, right?
Yeah.
I think Dan talked a little bit about that. I think if you look at the programs that we're trying to do as the GSMA, we do see these as revenue generating opportunities for mobile network operators. We also see, as I mentioned before, new business models around how some of this ought to work. Eventually you're going to get to a point where, if the revenue isn't increasing, it would be very difficult to invest in infrastructure. I do think that the answer to that is going to come much before any of that ever gets to that point. I think the US operators are recognizing that, and they're investing in infrastructure already, knowing that there's a lot of different ways that they can recoup those investments. If you look at the connected life, we see that as a fantastic opportunity. You look at opportunities in mobile identity, in mobile commerce, we think there's a lot of different ways to monetize that. So I don't think we're too worried about that. I do see a disconnect today, but I think we put the wheels in motion that's going to address that in the future.